have come together to meet. And the way it happened was I had two students from my district, Madigan Traversy, who you'll hear from later, and Giselle Perez, who you'll hear from later, came to me with a concern. They said, hey, students are impacted by the climate crisis. It affects how we live our day-to-day life. It impacts our ability to study and to learn. We're concerned about it. And we wrote a resolution that we believe highlights these issues and needs to be brought forward. So I immediately called my colleague, the incredible Kathy Castor from Florida, who heads up the Select Committee on the climate crisis, and we conspired to introduce that resolution, and it's HR 975. And that's why we're here today to talk a little bit about that. Now, subsequent to the introduction of the bill and these great student leaders coming forward, there's been a number of studies that have been done that validate this issue. It's a problem, and it's affecting young people around the world. So I'm honored to be here with my colleagues and these great student leaders and the others that you'll hear from today, including Mom's Clean Air Force, that understand that this is a problem and we need to do something about it. So thank you all for being here, and I'd like to introduce Kathy Castor, the representative from Florida.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm so proud to stand here with these advocates for action, advocates in the Congress, champions like my good friend Mike Thompson, Mike Levin, another compatriot on the Climate Committee, Troy Carter, who represents communities on the front line of the climate crisis, but especially Mom's Clean Air Force and the students who are demanding action, change, and support as we grapple with the costly impacts of the climate crisis. I want all of the students to know that the reason that we have been able to make historic progress on climate action and clean energy is because at the beginning of the effort to build the most historic investment in climate action in the history of this country, we asked student leaders and young people to come and help us set the table, to talk about the climate emergency and the scale of the action needed out of Washington, D.C. When Speaker Pelosi organized the Climate Committee, she gave us one task: to develop an action plan for the Congress to help solve the climate crisis. As the youth leaders convened here on the Hill in our very first hearing, and then week after week after week pressuring the Congress to act, they infused our effort with the energy and optimism that it needed. And they can be very proud today, and I hope that they take hope away from the fact that we, just 1 month ago, President Biden signed the most historic package of climate action policies in the history of this country. Yes, to lower costs, to make appliances more affordable, put money back into people's pockets, electric vehicles, more money for transit, more money for environmental justice communities. But really that ambitious transition to clean energy across our communities. But nevertheless, here today we stand and we've got a lot of work to do, and it's weighing on young people. It is, you look at the TV, you turn on the TV set this summer, it looks like a scary disaster movie reel from the floods and wildfires, the loss of life. So it's understandable that young people are pressing the Congress, but it's also understandable that they are worried, and they feel stressed, they feel a bit of anxiety in this world today, but we're here to help them. Help lift them up, provide hope, but provide action here in the Congress. So we're here to stand with the young people in this country, to know that we're here to walk hand in hand with you for clean energy, for more resilient and safer communities at the scale we need to address this climate emergency. So I'm grateful to Giselle and Madigan, all of the young people standing here today. You all have brought us this far. We have so much farther yet to go, but as we march together, I'm confident that we can continue to make progress. One of the student leaders, Madigan Traversy, a senior at Sonoma Academy School, has helped organize the schools for climate action. I'm grateful to you, Madigan, and all of the student leaders who have pressed this Congress for change. Congratulations on the progress we've made so far, and I can't wait to hear from you as you encourage greater action here on Capitol Hill. Madigan Traversy.
My name is Madigan Traversy. I'm 17 years old and a senior in high school in Sonoma County, California. I'm here today as a representative of Schools for Climate Action, a nonpartisan grassroots organization with a mission to empower school boards to act against the climate crisis and declare climate change a generational justice issue. Today I would like to share my personal story as the co-author of House Resolution 975. At 11:30 p.m. on October 9th, 2017, my mom and I were startled by a robocall on our landline with an evacuation warning. We had smelled smoke earlier in the night. The automated phone message told us that 3 houses were on fire 8 miles away. We grabbed our dog and I got my school backpack and we got in the car in our PJs. Only 3 houses were on fire, so I didn't think our home was in danger, and we didn't spend time grabbing anything. Once we got to the bottom of the hill that we lived on, we saw flames on the other side of the valley. That, mixed with the sea of car headlights around us in the middle of the night, was our first moment of regret for not grabbing any of my childhood artwork, our journals, or anything that was special to us. My family found out the next day that our house and property burned down. The trees I grew up climbing in, the orchard and garden that my mom spent 15 years developing, the home I'd lived in my whole life burned to the ground. And at that point, thousands of people in my town were experiencing the exact same thing. The whole city was engulfed in the Tubbs fire by the next morning. When we got our evacuation call, 3 homes were on fire 8 miles away. The fire reached and burned down my house 20 minutes later. 115-mile-per-hour winds pushed the fire all night long. These fires were climate-related. In other states, it may be hurricanes, floods, droughts, extreme weather, or storms, but the fact remains. Climate-related catastrophes are happening now. And along with these climate disasters comes with the mental health ramifications. I have experienced anxiety, depression, and trauma following these fires, especially because they remain a risk in our county annually, and I have had to evacuate twice since losing my home. Climate-related disasters are taking a toll on youth health now, and it needs to be addressed as soon as possible. The drafting of what is now House Resolution 975 began in the fall of 2020 as a collaboration between several students from 2 Sonoma County high schools. We are very privileged to attend a school with climate education woven into the curriculum, and we became empowered to bring forward our youth voices into policy. When the other students involved in the original drafting graduated, Giselle Perez and I took the reins on this project, motivated by the devastation that our community has experienced. When we originally met with Representative Thompson to propose our idea, he was instantly supportive and has been consistently motivated to prioritize our resolution ever since then. We want to thank Representative Thompson for being a member of Congress who always shows up and joins his staff to meet with youth. Your dedication to making our voices heard is so appreciated. Our process following this original meeting included research, editing, and revising, while keeping in communication with Representative Thompson's staff until the completion of our resolution and the introduction of House Resolution 975. We are now proud to say that we have 90 endorsements with representation from health, education, and environmental focus groups, and over 40 congressional co-sponsorships within Congress. The UN IPCC report in 2021 articulated research laying out statistics of the toll that climate change is taking on youth mental health. The report also called for incorporation of youth voices in climate policy, as the policies today will impact us the most. It's more important now than ever to acknowledge these 2 issues together and take swift action to provide resources for mental health. Next, I want to invite up my co-author of this resolution, Giselle Perez, to explain more about our hopes for the resolution and our experience with lobbying for it so far. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madigan. It's been an honor to work with you at this resolution. My name is Giselle Perez. I'm 17 years old from Sonoma County. And this resolution is based on emerging research demonstrating what many young people across the U.S. will tell you. We are anxious about the future. And this anxiety is warranted because today's children will be exposed to an average of 5 times more disasters than their grandparents. We are facing a potential future of economic instability, mass migration, food insecurity, drought, and stronger and more destructive storms. According to the American Psychological Association, as climate-related disasters continue to increase, more youth will be directly affected by increasing rates of stress and trauma through interruptions in school, disruptions in routine, separation from caregivers due to evacuations and displacement, and parental stress after a disaster. Climate models depict dire impacts of a rapidly warming climate in 2050, but we all see these disasters now in our communities. Between the Tubbs firestorm in California, Hurricane Fiona in Puerto Rico, a record drought in the West, excessive rainfall and flooding in the South, and a high of 118 degrees in my hometown earlier this month, climate change is impacting us now. The most vulnerable among us, children, the elderly, and those affected by existing systematic obstacles, are disproportionately affected. In 2050, I will be 45 years old. If the U.S. does not rise to the challenge of implementing bold, systemic, and just policies guided by the best available science, my future and the future of my generation is hopeless. That is why I am so committed to involving youth in climate policy. The actions taken in the next few years will be the deciding factor in whether or not my generation has a livable future. Youth must have a seat at the table on this issue as we are the ones most affected. Yesterday, we brought together teachers, education leaders, mental health professionals, parents, and over 80 youth to hit the halls of Congress and meet face-to-face with 55 congressional offices. Students shared their story of how climate change has impacted their mental health, climate-related disasters, and climate anxiety. While facts and studies form a basis for change, the personal stories shared with members often hit closest to home. Students discussed missing school after floods, fires, or smoke, becoming ill while playing outdoor sports in extreme heat, and the overall fear that the future they are set to inherit will be unlivable. One student shared about how excessive heat triggers sensory issues they have, while another spoke about panic attacks brought on by climate anxiety. Another student was concerned if being a parent would be an option for them, while others touched on how being kept inside due to extreme temperatures brings them back to the days of feeling isolated, similar to how they felt during the pandemic. Growing up in California, I can't remember a time when I didn't live in a drought. Climate change has been prevalent in my entire life, and I do not want it to be my future. Thank you so much. I would like to now welcome up Elizabeth Bichard, the Senior Policy Analyst for Mom's Clean Air Force. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Bichard, and I'm a Senior Policy Analyst at Mom's Clean Air Force, which is an organization of over 1 million parents around the country. I'm also the mother of 6-year-old twins, and I care deeply about the way climate change is reshaping the world for our children and young people. As many of us already understand far too well, the climate crisis is a mental health crisis, and youth and our kids are among the most vulnerable. A 2021 study surveying over 10,000 teens and young people around the world found that 75% of youth think the future is frightening, and 45% of respondents reported that thoughts about climate change have a negative impact on their daily lives. Climate change is affecting the mental health of much younger children too. We know that high levels of childhood stress, like the stress of experiencing a climate disaster or displacement, can affect long-term brain development. And when children are exposed to traumatic events, they may experience post-traumatic stress disorder and depression to a greater degree than adults. Every day, Mom's Clean Air Force works with families who have been impacted by climate disasters, from wildfires to hurricanes to extreme heat. As someone who has worked with parents navigating climate stress, I've seen the toll that accumulating disasters and extreme weather can take on families. And like so many of us, I've also experienced this myself. One of my own children takes medication that makes his body more sensitive to heat. And during the intense heat waves of the past 2 summers, we've had to stay inside far more often than we wanted to keep my child safe. And as a parent, it is heartbreaking to have to choose between your child's physical safety and the outdoor play that all children need for their mental and emotional health. House Resolution 975 represents a critical step forward in creating the infrastructure we need to support youth mental health in a changing climate. This resolution argues that we need expanded funding for youth-centered climate education, resilience, and adaptation projects that benefit mental health. It advocates for incorporating mental health into disaster preparation efforts, reducing the stigma associated with mental health treatment, reducing cost, and increasing access for mental health treatment, and more. And most importantly, it centers the voices and needs of the generation that will be carrying the heaviest weight from the climate crisis. To the youth who co-wrote this resolution, thank you. Thank you for your leadership and your courage in a time of intersecting crises. We parents are with you and with all of the young people who are feeling the impacts of climate change every step of the way. And to the representatives in Congress who have co-sponsored this resolution, thank you. Your support is an acknowledgement that resources are required to address the youth mental health crisis and that it is time for Congress to act. Moms Clean Air Force is proud to support House Resolution 975 and the amazing young people who have written this resolution. We urge all members of Congress to stand by youth in the states they represent and to co-sponsor House Resolution 975 as well. I'm hopeful that when my own children enter their teen years, they and their peers will have access to the mental health support they need and deserve in a changing climate. And now I'm pleased to introduce McKenna Dunbar, who is a Gen Z advisor for the Climate Mental Health Network.
Good morning, everyone. My name is McKenna Dunbar, and I am a Gen Z board advisor at the Climate Mental Health Network. The impact of climate change represents a dream unfulfilled. Safe housing for children, stable environment to learn, and a future for present leaders. We lobbied on Capitol Hill for a fundamental purpose: to address the complex and contentious impacts of climate change on the mental health of youth. Empowered and resilient youth are the key to our nation's future. We are here to drive equitable, progressive, and sustainable changes across this nation and its failing institutions, not continue the way it has been previously. I am here today because I feel disillusioned by the lack of safeguards for some of America's most vulnerable populations. In particular, these are rural communities, low-income communities, communities of color, indigenous communities, and youth. They are disproportionately burdened by climate change. I've said this before, and I will say it again. The solution to the climate crisis must match the scale of the problem. It represents a crisis of care as much as it represents a crisis of leadership. HRES 975 has the potential to revolutionize our national efforts. I would now like to welcome Congressman Mike Levin to the podium.
Well, good morning. I'm Mike Levin from Southern California. I really want to thank both Mike Thompson and Kathy Castor. They are two tremendous leaders in the Congress. I was so honored when the Speaker asked me to be on the Select Committee for the Climate Crisis, and Kathy has done such an extraordinary job. Where'd she go? She's not here to hear the compliment, but she's done such an extraordinary job with the committee creating that action plan. And a huge component of that action plan were the appropriate tax incentives for clean energy. And no one has worked harder on that issue than Mike Thompson. So when I think about the impact that the Inflation Reduction Act will have on greenhouse gas emissions, trying to mitigate the worst impacts of the climate crisis, I think of Mike and his great work on the Ways and Means Committee. And I look at these issues through the lens of having two young children at home. They're 10 and 8 years old. And the reason I first ran for office was to make the world a safer, healthier place for them. I know that the future of our planet weighs on many young people throughout this country, including my kids. My 10-year-old in particular is really starting to read a lot more and understand a lot more about the climate crisis. That's why I'm so proud to be a co-sponsor of this resolution, which recognizes what we already know. The climate crisis is here, and it is already impacting the mental health of our young people. They're seeing record-breaking temperatures year after year. They're witnessing devastating hurricanes like the recent one in Puerto Rico that's left over 1 million people without basic necessities, including food, water, and electricity. Our kids are experiencing year-round wildfires that threaten to destroy their homes. And thank you to the activists who are here. You spoke so eloquently about your personal experiences. In our region. Just this year, the Laguna Niguel wildfire immediately north of my district burned over 200 acres and destroyed at least 20 homes. These same wildfires also dictate how much time kids can spend outside due to air quality concerns, further impacting their everyday life. In my district, kids are also seeing rising sea levels and coastal bluff erosion that has tragically taken lives. Young people are facing year-round droughts that threaten basic access to clean, drinkable water, and they're confronted with the reality that it will be increasingly difficult to secure reliable water in the decades ahead. It's the result of decades of neglect to our planet, and it must stop now. When I voted to pass the historic Inflation Reduction Act, I knew I wasn't just voting for the biggest investment in climate action in U.S. history. I was voting to create a better world for my kids and future generations, and hopefully impacting world history. The IRA will combat the climate crisis and help save a planet that is in desperate need of saving. And it'll finally let us fulfill our promise to young people that our elected leaders can do the right thing and invest to protect our planet. So to the young people across this country who demanded that we take action, we see you, we hear you, we're with you, and we are investing to ensure we give you a bright future and a healthy planet. I'm hopeful that Congress' recent actions could give our youth some hope. Finally, we're acting in a way that this crisis demands. And while we've got to do more, the historic investments in the IRA should give everybody hope for a better future. With that, I'll turn it over to my good friend and colleague, Representative Troy Carter.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you all very much. And thank you for being here. I'm proud to join and lend my voice to these outstanding members of Congress and these outstanding student leaders. To Representative Mike Thompson, Castor, Levin, Moms Clean Air Force, School for Climate Action students, and all of you. Thank you so much for your time, your effort, your willingness to step up. One might say those of us in office, this is our job. But for you, you stand up and you do it because it's the right thing to do. You know, we offer ourselves for public office to come to these hallowed halls to work for you. And it is so refreshing to have young people, committed mothers, committed individuals to step up and say, we want to be a part of the solution. Because we know that these storms, they don't recognize gender. They don't recognize race. They don't recognize party. They just come. And in my home state of Louisiana, we have seen some of the most horrific. We've seen storms that have come in a way that we never thought we would have. We've seen storms come at times that we never expected them to come. We know that they come faster. We know that they come stronger. We know that they stay longer. We know that their impacts have more than just the impacts of brick and mortar. We know the impacts that it has on families, on individuals, on our young people. Loss of your home site, food insecurity, hearing mom and dad talk about the tragedies of the present, the future, or the past, loss of our loved animals. All of these things play significant roles in our everyday life. And I'm so proud to be a part of HRS 975 because it demonstrates that we are not just listening, but we are doing something about it. It demonstrates that we are not just sitting in the front row seat, but we're part of the performance, part of the action, part of the resource, part of getting things done so you can have the mental stability, the help, the knowledge, the resource. I am proud to have, along in a bipartisan way, to have founded the Disaster Preparedness and Recovery Caucus, a caucus that is designed to deal with the what if, the what before, and the what after of natural disasters, to make sure that we're preparing for the storms and we're preparing for what the aftermath leaves behind. We know that they come. We know that they will come. It's not a guess. We know they're coming in places they hadn't come before. We know they're coming stronger. And we know that we cannot just sit back and play reactionary government. We have to be proactive. And that's what this caucus does. That's what HRES 975 does. And that's what you do. Because your being here is very much a proactive step on how we address these issues, how we make a difference with these issues, and that everyone knows we got one planet. We've got to be good stewards of that planet. We've got to make sure that we preserve it, that we care for its environmental soundness, and we have to make sure that we have a keen sense of listening so we can encourage our youth to talk. Because communication is key. As we talk about what hurts, as we talk about what concerns you, we build a better world. A world that understands the importance of environmental protection, of resiliency, of bouncing back and lending the appropriate and ever-present needed resources to protecting our earth and protecting our young people. And I applaud all of you. And I applaud you, sir, for your incredible leadership. And I look forward to working closer, further, and harder to bring true resolution to these matters. God bless you.
Good job. Does anyone have any questions? Well, to all of the participants today, thank you very much for being here. And not just for being here today, but for showing up every day, because it's your leadership, it's your activism that's really moving the ball on this. And I want to thank you very much. To my colleagues, I couldn't ask for better people to work with. It's so heartening to work with dedicated individuals who get it and are willing to go the extra mile to make sure future generations are going to be have a planet that's habitable. So thank you all very, very much, and let's make sure we keep driving on.